a phrase that I often use is a diagnosis is a doorway. It was like a new reality for me. These things that I've called myself like broken or not enough, those things are not necessarily true. It's just I do things differently. And I think when you try and fit into a neurotypical society, you fall into these patterns of overcompensating or just being extremely self-critical, and those things impact your self-esteem. So it's been able to like give me a lot of self-compassion and understanding.
This is ADHD Aha, a podcast where people share the moment when it finally clicked that they have ADHD. I am here today with Fellisia Robinson. Felicia is a mental health advocate, content strategist, and founder of Brown Girl ADHD, a first-gen eldest daughter and cozy entrepreneur. She creates digital tools and safe spaces to support Black and Brown women navigating ADHD at the intersection of race, gender, and neurodivergence. Welcome, Felicia.
Hi, it's so nice to be here.
I have to ask, what is a cozy entrepreneur?
It's a term that I came across maybe 2 years ago. It's just we don't believe in the hustle. We try to optimize and just be efficient. As for our energy, the reason why a lot of people go into entrepreneurship is they want to create a lifestyle for themselves, right? But then you fall into the hustle trap, and that is exactly what we're trying to avoid with being cozy here.
I like that. Have you fallen into the hustle trap in your life?
Oh, yes. It's a constant battle to find some type of balance between getting things done and knowing that it's enough, and just accepting that, because of course the ADHD in me wants to think it's not enough half the time, and I'm just like, oh, I need to do more, or I feel like I need to overcompensate. So I found balance.
The way you said I found balance, I'm halfway convinced that you found that balance.
It's an ebb and flow. I feel like I have a tendency to operate in extremes. So I go in and out, and my goal is always to check my intention and get back to some level of grounding. So that's what I mean by I've found balance. It's a everyday thing. It's not something you find and you just stay on.
I want to hear about how, getting diagnosed with ADHD maybe changed your perspective, but in order to get there, let's talk about growing up. What was it like growing up?
I'm essentially a third culture kid. I came to America when I was 6. So I've had to navigate a lot of different intersections, and it's been challenging. So for me, I just always thought I was weird. I knew I was different. I just didn't know in what capacity. I feel like a lot of the labels that I grew up with, for example, coming from Jamaica, a predominantly Black or African culture, to America. And then when I moved to America, I moved to Jersey. I was one of 3 Black girls in my class, but then the Black girls that were in my class were African American. So I just did not have a place. And I feel like that's been low-key a theme throughout my whole entire life, me not having a place. I've always kind of been a floater. I very much still am. So it's been hard to figure out how to navigate these circles, because I haven't necessarily been enmeshed in one. So I've always just been yeah, I'm a little different. I'm just gonna do my own thing, especially because I grew up as an only child for 12 years. I kind of just figured out how to be by myself, and a lot of my creativity was developed in that space of me and my introversion, and me just being into fashion, me just being into just creating, writing in all these different capacities. So I feel like that's one of the positives I could say about how ADHD impacted me growing up. It's definitely driven my love for storytelling. I created my own world, and I lived in my head for so long. I just have so many thoughts, stories, narratives, and it's easy for me to get wrapped up in that, especially with the trait of being introvert as well. So
there's something that sounds really magical about that, really delicious in a way, these worlds that you can create and that you have created. Was there a piece of that was painful?
Absolutely. I think growing up in the household where I was, one of the reasons why I went to therapy was just because I didn't have the quintessential childhood. So I had to also navigate that. And I think me being able to escape in my head or escape in a book was a really easy thing for me to do. It was very natural for me to do. So I feel like my brain saved me in a lot of those situations, and it protected me because I didn't know what to do with those feelings or those emotions at that time. All the years of the lack of explanation or nurturing or guidance in certain emotional mental spaces has required me in my adulthood to solve for that. I remember being in my early 20s, I was just mad at the world. I'm just why? Mom, why did you not teach me these skills? Dad, why did you not teach me these skills? And in my now maturity, I've realized they just didn't know. And also, I also think they had ADHD. So they were really in the dark. So yeah, like I definitely feel like it's been a part of the benefit of like being able to like lock in and just be like, okay, you know what? It's going to get better. I'm just going to create this in the meantime, or this is where my brain's going to go.
About what age are you talking about right now? Like tween years, just in general?
Yeah. I feel like it just morphs. Like, for example, high school, I was never the social butterflies because I was just a little awkward. I didn't like small talk and I wasn't into the drama. So for me, like, yeah, art room or doing something creative would be more my speed, or immersing myself in like Pinterest or Tumblr at the time was like definitely something.
Tumblr.
Oh my God. It
Oh
was a
my
time.
God.
Tumblr was
I
fun.
loved Tumblr.
So like just immersing myself in creating like even these different personas, like I feel like I remember when I used to get dressed in high school, I used to be like, how do I feel today? And that would dictate my outfit or the persona that I would put on. Like I could do grunge, I could do preppy, I could do whatever I wanted. So I feel like it just came by way of that. That's kind of how I protected myself. And because of that, in school, they knew me for my fashion because they didn't know what I was going to wear the next day. It's just like, this girl is so unpredictable. It was like that was how I formed one of my first identities. I want to say that I'm even now reforming because like I think in high school I created like I'm not going to say a facade, I guess a mask to some extent of like the fashionista girl. I wanted to go to FIT. I wanted to move to New York City. Like that's how I became socially acceptable. That's how I acclimated to different circles.
I wonder, is it an ADHD thing to kind of like try on different personas through your clothes? I know that all kinds of people do that. I mean, I'm like, I'm going to be like a punk today and I'm going to wear my Sex Pistols shirt and I never listened to any of their music, but I'm going to be a hippie today, or I'm going to be the thrift store kid today.
Oh yeah. I definitely like feel all of that. And that was a form of expression for me because like I just didn't know how to socially and emotionally navigate these spaces. So that was like how I figured myself out or place myself.
That's so interesting. So maybe it's potentially somewhat related to like trying to navigate socially and emotionally. And maybe we have trouble being part of a conversation, knowing not when to not interrupt, staying focused on conversations.
Girl. Yeah.
Like building emotional connections. And it can be hard when you have ADHD.
I feel like a lot of what I've cultivated and the skills I've cultivated have been like coping. The reason I got good at fashion was I think I had an interest, but also like I was just like, oh, so this works. No one's gonna isolate me or look at me weird or have the overthinking. Like I had a label. In a weird way, that was structure for me, for my identity and who I was. And now that I'm in my 30s, I'm like refining that. So that has been a whole identity crisis on top of the ADHD within itself, just like the changes that come and the different masks and what they mean and overthinking that whole identity process. I'm just like, okay, so if I have this label on me, what does that mean? What does that say about me? And then it becomes this internalized meaning and how I need to move through the world and operate. When in reality, like, you can make it whatever you want, but for us, I really do think labels, they like box us in good and bad ways.
How did you do in school growing up?
I grew up in like Jamaicans are very academically driven. So, like my family's really into school. And while I never quite excelled in like the traditional sense, I passed and I got by, but I always knew there was untapped potential. And then when I went to college, I literally got tunnel vision because I wanted to graduate with honors, which I did. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And I'm proud of myself, but I think it also caused a lot of harm as well. Like I wasn't able to really be present in other areas of my life because I was so focused academically. And I put a lot of pressure on myself because of that. And I also think like an underlying layer I was thinking about was like this whole concept of Black excellence. In my family, I have people that's been to Ivies and everyone has a PhD and a master's degree, right? So operating within that guise as well was something I think played subconsciously in my head in regards to like me needing to perform, me needing to be good enough, me needing to prove to myself that I was smart.
That sounds stressful.
Yeah. But like
the inside of the year goes to me. Yeah. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, like, but and this goes back to like the component of like self-criticalness because I was so critical of myself. I remember I got a 97 on a test. I literally went to the teacher and asked her what happened to my other 3 points.
What did the teacher say?
She just like, it was just a few little things. And I'm just like, I'm just trying to understand what happened here. That was the perfectionism kicking in and tying my output to worth and my value. And that's how I like identified myself, at least in those years. Like I was just like, oh, you need to get these grades to be good enough, or you need to get these grades to be smart enough, or make it into this fashion company. I was doing the most. I was like working like 3 jobs with straight A's. I don't know how.
It's just like pure adrenaline, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just had a flashback to something I haven't thought about in decades. In college, I remember it was in a journalism class my senior year, and I had been getting really good grades, and I got a 90 on something, and I like lost my shit and I couldn't handle it. And I went to the professor, and the look that this woman gave me of like, you know that that's a good grade, right? It was a moment for me. I had to compose myself.
Yeah, no, it's just like, it's a weird relationship, like how I think we evaluate self-esteem in
Right.
neurodivergent community, because you're just told so much when you're growing up, it needs to be this way. And everything in you is like pushing against that. So now in these spaces, like we kind of hold ourselves to these standards where like, okay, this is how I equate my value. Like if I'm keeping up with neurotypicals.
Right.
In a sense.
Only at that time, I didn't know. Did you know that you weren't neurotypical at that time?
No.
Yeah. So we're doing all of these things without really knowing.
Your lens is so important, because if you're looking at things from a neurotypical lens, of course you're going to think you're underperforming. Of course you're going to think you're not enough according to the standards. But a big reframe that I've worked on in therapy is like the quote, like comparison is the thief of joy. Like you can't appreciate what you have because your baseline or your standard in which you're judging yourself is something outside of you. And what society tells you, what neurotypicals tell you, what your culture tells you, what your family structure tells you. So you're operating on a whole different standard. And that just really chips away at your self-esteem a lot of the times.
When were you diagnosed with ADHD?
It was last year. It's been like a roller coaster, just mental health in general. I was diagnosed with chronic depression and anxiety since like college. And so I started my journey that way. And that was really new for me because I come from first generation. I'm the eldest daughter. And I feel like all the time I'm paving a road to figuring things out for myself and paying it back. But it's been a time accepting that mental health, one, is a thing. And then later in life, figuring out the ADHD part last year. It was like a shocker, a relief. It was like an emotional roller coaster, figuring out this is what's been going on.
What was happening? Was it a certain symptom, a certain challenge? Was there a moment that led you to this?
I just kept on going through the same cycles and I just could not put my finger on it. I'm like a corporate dropout. So I was working in fashion since I got out of college. And then I just wanted a change after the pandemic. So I started working in finance, and it was a slower pace, but I was still experiencing a lot of like the challenges with, like, for example, masking and perfectionism and just forgetfulness and all these other things that I attributed to like a fast-paced environment. I just felt just constantly overstimulated. I wanted to be social, but I just got burnt out. And then I think also being a Black woman in corporate America, there's so many layers and nuances to how you have to show up and how you have to operate. And I just remember like one day we were on a call and they were like, oh, just bring yourself to work. Just be yourself.
Bring your full self to work, right? Just like lickety split, right? Yeah.
And I was just like, huh? Like, I'm not really sure how to interpret that. Could we put that on a chart? Could we have some type of visual to depict what that means? Because I knew like mental health was an element of like how I showed up. And then also me being a Black woman in this space. And I think at both intersections, it could be quite challenging as to like what's authentic, what's off topics. Like me, I'm the girl that wants to have the deep conversations. I hate small talk. So the corporate going in person all the time was just like, how do I navigate this? How do I do a good job and expend or like measure my energy in a way that works? And that's what I really had a hard time with, is just like socially acclimating back into that environment, especially after the pandemic, going through cycles of burnout where I'm just like, I get home and let's say I went into the office on Monday, I would not recover until like Wednesday, Thursday. Emotionally, mentally.
It is exhausting. Back in the day, I would try to plan multiple things every weekend. I'm like, no, I'm going to only one social thing per weekend is all I can handle, if that. Because
Yeah.
there's always a letdown after I come home and I'm just like, what did I say? What did I do? How did I present
Oh,
myself? And it's
girl.
like, I have to go be alone for like 2 hours and just tell myself that the world did not end.
It's the overthinking. This is the duality with like ADHD. Like there's so many polar opposites and extremes that could be utilized for good. Like we're extremely creative, but that same creativity will have you telling yourself stories that are not serving you. So my therapist that I had in New York, she was just like, you know, we're going through a lot of the cycles. It's been a couple years and I'm seeing a big pattern here. And she just mentioned like, maybe this looks like ADHD. I'm not sure. And from there, I moved to Georgia and I got a lot of time to reflect and space to just not be overstimulated because New York City is overstimulating sometimes. By way of my new therapist, we went through the process of like getting diagnosed. And the first step in that was getting me emotionally regulated because the emotional dysregulation for ADHDers is
Yeah.
such a big thing. You just grow up with these big emotions and it's so normal and it's just like, what do you even do with that? So I was first on anxiety medication and I was having a time. I was just like, this is not ADHD. Oh, this is lovely. Like, I feel like I could control my emotions and I could go through my day in a little bit more of a productive fashion. But my psychiatrist at the time was just like, let's just still do the assessment. And I was a little hesitant because I'm just like, girl, I'm fine. Like, I feel so good. And then I passed the test with flying colors.
What was your reaction to that?
I just got like cold chills down my body because like, it was like a new reality for me for some reason. It's just like washed over me and I was hysterically laughing because I was just like, oh, this is funny. The joke is not on me. Got it. But yeah, it was a really good moment of clarity. I cried because I just think there's just so much pressure that came off of me with that confirmation and like being able to put a name to a face for sure. I'm like looking back at my life and I'm just like, okay, girl, so this is why you can never get nowhere on time. Okay, this is why you leave things all over the place. This is why you're mentally exhausted. This is why you overthink. These things that I've called myself like broken or not enough, those things are not necessarily true. It's just I do things differently. And a phrase that I often use is a diagnosis is a doorway. And I think when you don't know, there's limited ways forward.
That's really beautiful. I've never heard that depicted that way. Can I use that?
You could steal it, girl. I don't even like I think I read it on Pinterest somewhere, so it's not my original quote.
So let's talk about your work and why you do what you do. What is Brown Girl ADHD?
I just originally started off like with the whole productivity thing because at the time I was working corporate and I was just really struggling to balance all the components of my life. And I was just like, I just want something to help me figure this out. So I did what I do. I hyperfixated, did some research on like the things that work for ADHD, such as like gamification, such as visual trackers. Like I remember thinking to myself, the reason I think I like school sometimes was because of all the posters. You could see how far along in the year you were. You could see in the scale of A to Z where in the alphabet you were. You were able to identify and locate things. So I created a planner that's called the Soft Productivity Planner because I wanted to take a softer approach to it because I think productivity is typically very rigid and you need to stick to this formula and it's a very neurotypically coded thing. So I just wanted to like think about all my problems and create solutions to them. So that's how Brown Girl ADHD was born. I started talking about just my journey and the systems that I have on TikTok, and I found a lot of other brown women that identified with like the lack of like structure and the things that they needed. And when you're into self-help or self-improvement, there's really nothing from a neurodivergent standpoint to bridge the gap in regards to like concept to execution. So that's kind of where I wanted to step in and like not only create the tool, but have conversations about what this looked like for somebody that looks like me. Because like when you think about the stereotypes, like it doesn't look polished. It doesn't look a certain type of way. And because of how I present, I like know like sometimes I like skip over that. But like I wanted to like talk about the fact that it can look like this and I could just be mentally a hot mess up here because I'm overthinking or I'm dealing with all or nothing or I'm dealing with perfectionism, etc. Right?
Congratulations. And I love the cozy entrepreneur, soft productivity planner. I love these adjectives.
We're all about the feelings. And I think because we like go from 0 to 100, like it's our job. I think it's about learning how to go 0 to 25 and being okay with that and finding support that accompanies us with that.
I'm so glad that you came on today. Sharing your story is so important. So thank you for sharing it with the ADHD Aha audience. And it's just been really great to connect with you, Felicia.
I know this has been wonderful. I love having a good chat about, all that is our ADHD minds.